and welcome to another episode of the Family Gamers Podcast. This is episode 384.
Hello, everybody. We are super excited to bring another show to you. This is the big one. Bum, bum, bum. We're going to go over our 2024 board game holiday gift list this week. Who are we? We are the Family Gamers. As always, I am your host, Andrew, and I'm joined by my lovely and wonderful wife, Anitra.
That's me.
All right. And we are going to compress the first half of the show because we know the second half of the show is going to go on for a little while.
Like an hour.
Yeah. So my fact this week is super fast, super quick. 384 is, interestingly enough, the sum of 6 consecutive prime numbers.
All right.
Which I think
that's
is cool.
Yeah.
53 plus 59 plus 61 plus 67 plus 71 plus 73. All prime numbers. You add them up, you get 384. Quick, easy, fits what we need to do for the first half of the show.
We'd also like to remind our listeners about the saying from our sponsor we talked about last week. It takes money to make money. It's not actually the only way to make money, but it is a true statement. Income, however it looks, is like an engine. It can start slow, but as you build your resource pool, it often becomes easier to make more. If this sounds a little bit like the last time you played Wingspan or Terraforming Mars, it's because there are a lot of similarities between engine building in board games and financial engine building in real life. If you need help figuring out how to get that engine started, First Move Financial might be able to help you. Head over to firstmovefinancial.com/familygamers and see how First Move Financial can kickstart your financial engine today.
All right, thanks so much to the team over at First Move Financial for sponsoring another episode of the show. So I mentioned we're going to compress things this week. We're going to talk about 2 games, one from you, one from me. We promise we've played more.
Yeah, we played, 7 or 8 games over the past week. More than I would have expected.
Yeah, but we're going to focus this week on 2 games that we are certain we're going to be reviewing in the very near future.
Yeah, so the first one is one that you played almost a year ago now, but I did not, which is Santa's Workshop. So I pulled this out, I asked you to show me how to play, and we played the basic version. This is a fun little game.
Yeah, so this is a Christmas-themed game, unsurprisingly, from Elf Creek Games, and it is just super charming. It is a worker placement game, and it's just really easy to understand how the game works. I don't know how else to say it. It reminds me of Genotype. Like, it has a lot of the same kind of feel as Genotype just because it's a worker placement game, but it's even more simple than that game.
Well, and this is one where the theme really does help with understanding the mechanics of the game. You have a little team of 3 elves. You are placing your elves out on the board to do things mostly involved in making presents for children, but there's a few other tasks that happen around Santa's Workshop, like feeding the reindeer.
Yep.
And every once in a while, Santa kind of pops his head in and does an inspection and awards some mid-game points based on how well you're doing at all of the various things that you need to collect.
Yeah, so I think actually it's less than 3 elves if you play with more players.
Maybe.
We played a 2-player game. So the thing I really like about Santa's Workshop is there's kind of a simple mode and then a more complex mode. And we played the simple mode because we've never played the game before, which is, again, very easy. You really don't need to read anything in order to play this game. I mean, there's descriptions of the toys that you're building and stuff like that, but like a 6 or an 8-year-old could kind of understand what's going on with this game.
Yeah, very light reading in this game. Probably the most reading is actually on the reindeer. If you're going to start collecting reindeer, you want to collect unique ones. So you either need to be able to read the reindeer names or you need to be able to compare the numbers that they handily include in the corner.
Yeah, this is just 1 to 9 numeracy. It's not bad at all. The gist of this game is making gifts. And the way that you do that is you place your little elf workers in various places on the board to collect all of the different materials. You have cards in front of you for your gifts. And you basically, when you collect these materials, you take those materials and you put them on the cards and you match the numbers of icons. Conveniently, they don't put like you need 2 of the cloth. They just have 2 pictures of cloth. And that seems like a minor thing, but it is a pretty big deal when you're talking about a 6 to an 8-year-old to translate between just 2 pictures of cloth versus the number 2 and then some cloth. And there's a lot of these very slight touches to this game that really make it appealing to that lower age range, which I super appreciate.
Yeah, it just takes a lot of that cognitive work out of understanding the game so you can put your brain power into playing the game.
Yeah. I think the most complex things mechanically are, you mentioned the reindeer. So reindeer is a set collection. It's got some kind of Fibonacci sequence of increasing
the
numbers
more
based
unique
on your
ones you
sets,
have, the more
pretty
points
typical.
you get. Yeah.
But the other thing that's a little bit more complicated is when you put workers on these sections, like for cloth, for example, like I mentioned before, the second worker is going to get a little bit more, but the first worker gets victory points when the second worker gets placed on it.
Yeah.
So this is just something that a parent can manage. It's not really that complicated. And frankly, if you miss stuff like that, like whatever, if you're playing this at a level where you can't pick up on certain things like that because you're younger, it's not the end of the world.
It's funny though, because that's one of several touches in this game that remind me that this is very friendly competition.
Yep.
Like, you're going to get more materials, you get more stuff, but everybody who went to that material shop before you gets a point. Okay, great. You grabbed more materials than you need. Well, everything that you can't immediately use goes in this other location where somebody can show up later and be like, oh, hey, I'm going to just take from the spare materials.
It's like going to the leftover craft bin, basically.
Kind of,
Picking
yeah.
some stuff up. The other thing I really like about this game is worker placement games typically have very little chance in them. And so what they've done with this game to add just a little bit of chance is there's a location you can go to where you pick up a random ornament. And when you pick it up, you flip it over and you get whatever is on the other side. So there's some chance there. But then you take that ornament and you put it on the Christmas tree that's on your player board. And that's another thing that you get to choose that will give you some more materials. When Santa comes at his certain points in the game, you add up the number of toys you completed plus the number of ornaments on the tree. And whatever that number is, you get everybody's number, and then you rank those, and the highest number gets points, and the second highest gets less points, etc.
Everybody gets something, yeah.
Everybody gets something, right? Again, nice game. But this is a cool way where if you're working on building toys, that's one strategy. If you're working on just collecting ornaments all the time, that's kind of another strategy. And both of them funnel into the same point gathering model.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's Santa's Workshop. We intend to have a review for that out sometime early in December, as is appropriate to the season.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if it's going to work out, but we've got some special plans for December.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
All right. The game I'm going to mention is a bit more complicated.
Yeah, a bit, yeah.
And this is Super Snipers from Galen's Games. Super Snipers is a 2-player or 1-player game where you are playing as cybernetically enhanced snipers. This is a polyomino placement game. And the thing that I actually really like about this game is at the beginning, you have 3 targeting locations. And what you need to do is you need to place polyominoes in these targeting locations or in one of them or whatever to isolate, air quote, the target reticule in the middle from the edges of the board. When you do that, you get to flip over one of these tokens that will tell you whether you've either found your enemy or missed your enemy.
Yeah, I like that combination of placing the polyominoes and kind of playing hide and seek. There are bonuses in various spots and restrictions in various spots, so sometimes it may be to your advantage to be like, you know what, I don't think you're actually over here, but I'm going to place one polyomino in this other location to just get that bonus and be ready for when I do find you.
Right, because those icons that you cover up will give you various things. Once you find your opponent, you then get to put the targeting grid onto your scope player mat. And the idea here is, you figured out where they are, now you're zooming in for the kill. That's the concept, right? The kind of the usage metaphor really works for me. I mean, that honestly, the game's fine and cool and stuff, but that is such a smart and cool way. That part really shines to me as something that's unique with this game. So when you put that targeting thing on there, now you're zooming in. There's icons for innocent people, and then there's the icon for your actual target. And you kind of do the same thing with this isolation. You have to actually isolate all of the innocent people from the edges of the board and from the enemy, and then you have to isolate the enemy from everything else. Once you've done that, you score a hit, air quote. That location, so that one of the 3 locations then goes away, and you reset the rest of the thing, and you completely start over. You do this until one of the 2 of you has been hit 3 times, and the person who scores that 3rd hit is the winner. I know you don't really care for this game. It's definitely, like, I'm not trying to be gender normative or whatever, but, like, this definitely feels like a teenage boy game. Like, that's totally what this is.
No, I feel that way as well. It's not a bad game. I have enjoyed the 2 times I've played it with our son, even though I got smushed. It's a combination for me of the theme doesn't really grab me. There's been a few games like that I've played recently where just the theme is not the theme for me. But also Super Snipers has just a few more pieces to keep track of than I'm really comfortable with, especially when the theme doesn't immediately grab me.
Yeah, there's a lot of icons, especially on that zoomed in locator board, that give you all these different abilities. And you'll see in the review, all these abilities are represented by various chips that are like attached to your player board. There's a mode of this game called Quick Draw where you are flipping over a timer every 30 seconds or whatever. So it limits your ability to take turns to 1 every 30 seconds. But if your opponent is taking longer than 30 seconds, you can still keep taking turns back and forth at 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it just, when I was playing that mode, I couldn't think about all the extra abilities. I mean, if I played this game 100 times, I'm sure it would all be second nature to me. But there certainly is a lot of that kind of stuff. And that's almost why I say, like, it's that really kind of hardcore gamery mindset that loves all the extra stuff. I prefer to play this game a little bit more strategically, where you each take one simultaneous turn. When you're both done, you play the next turn.
Yeah.
But I absolutely respect that there's a different kind of gamer that wants to play it with this speed mode. So, I don't know. There's good things here, and there's some things here that I don't love, but it's not because they're bad. It's just not really for me.
Yeah.
And certainly our 13-year-old adores this game.
Yes. He doesn't love the solo mode, though, so this is definitely a dueling game primarily. If you super love it and you don't mind doing the bookkeeping of 2 players at once, you can do a solo mode.
Yeah, again, if I'm already on the edge of there's too many things going on that I have to keep in my head, the idea of doing that for a second person / AI
is too much.
Especially since I'm on the record as saying I don't really care for AI in games. I'm not anti-AI, but like, that kind of automata thing, it's not really my jam. So that's Super Snipers. You're going to see the review for this, again, coming out pretty soon. We're probably going to get it out in the next couple of weeks. Really cool game, really neat ideas. I just think the target audience for it is a little limited, so I don't know. We'll see.
It's not exactly the family gamers audience, but it is a neat game.
Yeah, and it's not inappropriate in any way, shape, or
form.
Yeah. All right, Anitra.
Yes.
I said that we were going to have a short first half of the show.
And we, in fact, have a short first half of the show. It is time for a snap review, and then we're going to hop into our mega board game gift guide of meganess.
Well, we are confident that there's going to be something in this list that appeals to you or someone that you're buying gifts for. So we'll be right back.
Nekojima is Japanese for Cat Island. Unsurprisingly, there are cats there.
But it seems they not only have cats on Nekojima, they've also got what we're going to call a questionable electrical network. Let's take a look at this weird but adorable and unique looking game.
This is a snap review for Nekojima.
Nekojima is a dice rolling and stacking / dexterity game designed by David Carmona and Karen Nguyen and published by Hachette. Nekojima plays 1 to 5 players of really any age,
just about,
and the game can be as short as about 15 minutes. So Anitra, let's talk about the art in Nekojima.
Most of the art is on the box, but the pieces inside are these wooden poles called denshu with different colored string attached. Then there's the base with 4 quadrants and some background art on the tracking board. There are some tokens to represent bird nests, and of course, these adorable cats that we'll talk about soon.
So how do you play this game with these nunchuck-looking pieces?
On your turn, you roll the 2 dice. Each die face has one of the 4 district colors on it, a wild face, or a dagger. The dagger means that the player to your right chooses one of the 4 available districts.
Then you draw a cube from this bag. If it's black, keep drawing until you get another color.
Take a denshu with string that matches the color of that cube and put it on the board. The 2 poles must be in the 2 different districts that you've rolled, or that have been chosen for you. You can't touch the string, you can't have the string touch other strings, you can't wrap it around the pole, and you can't put a denshu on top of itself, even if you're staying in the same district.
You can, however, put the Denshu poles on top of other Denshu. Once you've played your Denshu, take as many cat tokens as black cubes that you've drawn. You have to hang these cats on the wires that match the color of the Denshu that you've placed this round.
As long as the placement is valid and nothing falls, go to the next player. The game ends when something falls down. In cooperative mode, you look at your level to see if you've all won. In competitive mode, there's one loser, and everyone else is considered the winner.
There's also a lot of variants to this game, which add to the replayability. So, Anitra, what did we expect from Nekojima?
It looks really cute. The art made me think a little bit of a video game I've been playing called Little Kitty Big City, which has a black cat jumping all over in a tiny little city. And stacking games always look pretty impressive on the table.
That's true. Honestly, for me, though, I expected a little bit more going on with the cats. I mean, it's literally in the name. And truthfully, the cats are actually a super small part of this game. This could have been Torijima, Island of Birds, or Sarujima, Island of Monkeys. It really wouldn't have actually changed the game all that much at all.
So what surprised you?
Well, I was surprised by how little cats were involved here, and honestly, I was a little disappointed in how that part of the theme came through. But casting the theme aside, I was surprised just how much I enjoyed stacking these little poles on top of each other and trying to create this wild, bizarre, nested collection of electrical wires that couldn't touch each other. I also definitely was expecting a game that was a little heavier, less light, I guess, than this one is. This game feels super light and moves really fast for me. Finally, in a family setting, I'm not sure how much I like that mechanic of everybody wins except for the one person that loses. I don't
that's what
love
the co-op version is for.
That's true. I enjoyed the game, but I don't know if I was delighted by the game. And I was hoping for the cat game that I would be delighted by the game. What about you?
It's funny that you say that it's lighter than you expected, because for me, the turns were way more involved than I expected. You roll dice, and you pick cubes from a bag, and you place your Denshu, and then sometimes you also place cats. I was also a little surprised at all of the variations in the rules. It's not just there's a competitive mode and a cooperative mode, but really codifying all the different restrictions, like these bird nests that you can place to show that a pole can't be stacked on anymore, or adding restrictions that only 2 poles can be in a given district. I think a little bit of experimentation can help you find the variation that works best for your family. So, Andrew, would we recommend Nekojima?
Well, we would recommend Nekojima for people who really love dexterity games. I wanted to recommend this as a cute cat game with some teeth, but like I said earlier, the theme doesn't really come through, unfortunately, and the game is super light. Don't get me wrong, I like this game. It's really fun. It's just wrapped in a box and made me think that it was going to be something else, and that's fine.
Yeah, as long as your expectations match what you're getting here, you won't be shocked by Nekojima.
We're going to rate Nekojima 3.5 circuits out of 5.
And that's Nekojima
In a snap.
And we're back.
Hello. I'm always excited for this show because, for a couple of reasons. Number one, we know we're going to do it every year, so we don't have to, actually figure out a topic. We just know that we're doing it. But we've already done a ton of work, so it's not like we have to do
So much
extra work for a podcast. Anyway, whatever. We're going to talk about the 2024 holiday gift guide. Some of the stuff on this list are just evergreens. Some of these things are things that have been on gift guides before, but they truly are so good. And
so good.
I can even say, looking at the statistics on our affiliate stuff, they're popular.
Some of these are quite popular, yes.
So anyway, I'm really excited to bring the list out this year. I think we're kind of doing it a little bit earlier than we usually do. Maybe a little?
Just a little bit. Part of that is due to only doing podcasts every other week now, so we want to allow lots of time.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
So for those of you who've been listening to the Family Gamers podcast for a while, this does mean that in the next couple of weeks, maybe not the next episode, possibly the one after that, we will be trying to get our friend Steven Dutzman on from Engage Family Gaming to talk about video games.
Video game hype man, Steven Dutzman.
Video game hype man, Steven Dutzman. But this week we're going to focus on board games. And in each year we have 9 different segments that we're going to talk about.
9 categories.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been more.
Oh, yeah?
I brought it down to 9.
From 10, though. I mean, it's not like,
Yes.
not like you brought it from 20 to 9.
Yes.
I mean,
Well, it went larger and larger, and then I was like, this is too many. We need to reduce it, and I managed to get rid of one category.
Yeah. So I will say this. So first of all, every single game that we're talking about, you can take a look at thefamilygamers.com/holiday, and it'll bring you right to the 2024 list.
Mm-hmm.
And also, every single one of these that we've ever done, you can find by going to holiday, whatever the year is. So you can go to holiday 2023, holiday 2022, blah, 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 blah. So you can always see those. Board games, it turns out, don't expire, although some of those older games are harder to get.
Yeah.
Some of these games are close to selling out or might have already sold out. So if you are looking for something and you find something that you really like and it's sold out, just keep checking back, I would recommend.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the companies that are publishing these games are aware that their stuff is popular and are working to get more stock in. So I think we should just kind of get started and see how we do. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do it in the same order that we have on the website. So we're going to start from very young kids and work our way up to the whole family.
All right, you got it.
So I'm going to say that actually everything we have on the list for kids under 6 is a repeat from previous years. But all 3 of these games are really, really good, and that's why we recommend them.
So I'm going to start with the first one on the list, which is my first Castle Panic. Now, we talk a lot in our review about how unsure we were when we got this. Why was this, even necessary? All these things. I will say that across every game that we have ever reviewed for the entire course of the Family Gamers ever, my first Castle Panic, hands down, has sold the most in terms of our affiliate statistics. Just in terms of the sheer numbers, hands down, this game is the most popular.
And it's because it's really, really good. It's really well done. I'm actually looking back at our review right now, and we gave it a 7.5, but mostly that's just because this is going to be relatively short-lived. It probably will last most kids about a year before they get tired of it.
Although I would point out that a game that is, $20, $30 or something along those lines, I don't even know how much it is right now, lasting a year is a great Christmas present.
Yes, I agree.
And it's not like the game is going to fall apart. It's just that your child might age out of
It's
it.
going to get tired of it, yeah.
So if you are purchasing aggressively and your child is a little bit on the younger side of games for the very young under 6, you might get a little bit more longevity out of it. Or if you have multiple kids.
Yeah, exactly. But this is a great cooperative game that can also be played solo. It uses shape and color matching and cooperation, like really, truly cooperation. You can share cards with each other, the other players, to defeat these monsters as they make their way up the path to the castle. And then you get to throw them in jail, which was always our kids' most fun part.
So 2 huge things about this. So if you have played Castle Panic, you pretty much know loosely how this game works, except it's only 1 lane instead of 6. All right, so it is still kind of a tower defense game with even more collaboration. And you clean up the game as you play. So the monsters come out, they get defeated, they get thrown in jail, which is conveniently
The box.
Yeah. So great game. This is one of those games that I think when we reviewed this, our son was, 5?
He was 4, I
4?
believe. Yeah.
And we would come out of the bedroom and he would be sitting on the floor playing by himself. Completely self-start, completely just having a grand old time on his own at 4 years old. My first Castle Panic is a fantastic game, and it works really, really well at that age range. And even though it's a game that we've had on our list before, it continues to be extremely popular for good reason.
Yeah. Also on our list for very young children, under 6, are Stamp Farm, which we first talked about last year. This is sort of a my first roll and write. You roll dice, everybody picks a die, and then stamps the corresponding animal somewhere on their paper. This is a game that will grow a little bit with kids because there is a simple mode and an advanced mode, and even the simple mode has a fair bit of math in the scoring, so you could go even simpler and just make it be about making the largest group of any particular animal or something like that. This is really fun, and kids this age love stamps.
They love stamps.
They love
so much.
stamps.
And the stamps are actually, I remember this, really good quality.
They are
for the game
well
that
done,
you're
yes.
paying for.
Yeah.
I was really impressed, like truly impressed. I didn't love the yellow ink color. That was really hard to see.
But it's
other
yellow
than that,
ink. Like,
I mean, sure.
yeah.
Sure. I just, saying for the crowd. So stay away from the yellow if you can, but it certainly works. It's just hard to see.
Thankfully, the yellow is only used in the advanced mode.
Well, there you go.
And the third game on our list for very young is Turtle Splash. This, again, is going to be on the older end of that age range, more like 5 and 6 years old. But it combines flicking a disc down a little slide and doing memory matching. We love that because of the combination of dexterity and memory, this plays into strengths both of younger kids with the memory and strengths of older kids and adults with the dexterity, where your memory tends to not be quite as good anymore.
So Turtle Splash was published by Lucky Duck, or
Yes.
Lucky Duck Kids, I guess, is the kind of
Yeah.
the kids line. My First Castle Panic Fireside Games, Stamp Farm DV Games. One of the things that's really interesting about Turtle Splash is you're going back and forth between memory and dexterity, and that does a remarkably good job of ruining whatever you're trying to remember. I'm just going to say
At least
that.
for adults, yeah.
But one of the things I really, really like about Turtle Splash when you're playing it with mixed ages is the point of this game is that you're basically flicking this token down a water slide into a little pond at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Or a waterfall. I don't know, whatever. It's a 3-dimensional board,
Yeah.
right? And it's very easy to take the rails off of the slope
Slide.
down. So you can take them off for an adult and put them back on for a child without dramatically interrupting gameplay, right?
Yeah,
Which I think
that
is really,
handy.
really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, let's move up to some games for slightly older kids. Early elementary, we're talking between age 6 and 9. Still not a whole lot of reading for these games.
Can I talk about the first one?
You very much can, yes.
All right, so the first one on this list, games for early elementary, is the first new game on the list.
Mm-hmm.
This is the game Dodo from Cosmos. So this is a game that we got in for review, I want to say a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
Right? This is a game that I originally saw at Gamma Expo back in March, and I kind of soft raved about it to you. Like, I knew it was very much a kid's game, so I knew it wasn't something that like you and I would play a lot, but I absolutely talked to you about this game.
We also talked a bunch about this last week on the podcast.
We did. So Dodo is this game where you are playing kind of roll a die / tile flip memory in order to build a ramp that wraps around a mountain so the dodo egg doesn't fall off the side of the mountain and break.
Yeah.
But the thing that blows my mind about Dodo is that somehow, without liquid, I don't think there's any liquid
No.
inside this thing. It's some kind of weird wobbly weight system. The dodo egg rolls extremely slowly.
Yeah, it builds a lot of suspense, but it's not nearly as hard as the rolling ball would make you think.
So we've played this as adults. We've played this as a family. We have let the kids play this game.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of different things you can do to adjust difficulty depending on who's playing. But at the easiest level, it's definitely easy.
Mm-hmm.
At the hard levels, it's definitely hard. So they've done a really good job of dialing in a different set of difficulties
Yeah.
that can make this game appeal at really any family level. The biggest downside to Dodo, because we haven't reviewed this yet, is that you pretty much have to take it apart when you want to put it away.
Yeah.
It's not earth-shattering, but it's an extra 5 minutes every time.
It's not a huge amount of work to put the thing together, but it does take a little bit of time.
The iconography is excellent on how to construct it, so it's
Yes.
not complicated. It's not an IKEA furniture situation. You're not going to be arguing about this thing, and you certainly don't need any tools, but it is something to keep in mind.
I think last week I may have compared a little bit to Don't Break the Ice. I still feel that way, but frankly, it's easier to put together than Don't Break the Ice. You're not like shoving stuff in with friction to hold it together. Like, it really is well set up.
So Dodo is just a really great, fun game. It's pretty much brand new from Cosmos. And yeah, we recommend it for that 6 to 9 age range.
We also recommend Turbo Kids. So this is a game we reviewed about a year ago now. It was just a little bit late to make it into the 2023 holiday gift list. Turbo Kids is intended to be a team racing game. The driver on each team is racing a marker around a track on a whiteboard. But the driver has to do it blindfolded, and other team members are helping them steer, either with verbal directions or with using their offhand thumb like a joystick. It sounds ridiculous. It looks ridiculous. It's a ton of fun. And although it's intended to be a team game, there's also a fully cooperative mode if you only have 2 or 3 players, where you just work through challenges together as a single team. It's really fantastic. We say in our review from a year ago that it really helped us to understand better how to communicate with our kids. So yes, this is a kids game, but I also highly recommend it for parents to connect better with your children.
Yeah, we, playing this game, watched our kids communicate with each other more effectively than we were able to communicate with them.
Yeah.
And it was very eye-opening for us to recognize that they kind of were able to intuit better forms of communication than what we as adults had kind of assumed were the defaults and the most appropriate. And so that was actually really, really powerful for us to see them communicate in that way, because usually they're hitting each other.
Especially a year ago. They've gotten a lot better. There's something magical about that 10-year-old age range, where our youngest is 10 now, where it's not that they don't ever hit each other, because boys do that, but all of a sudden there's a lot more cooperation and working towards common goals than there were even a year ago. So if you're still in the trenches with little kids, I'm here to tell you that it gets better, but also Turbo Kids might be an excellent game to help it get better.
This is true. All right, the next game on the list is an award-winning game. Spiel des Jahres runner-up, really. This is from Playpunk, and it is Captain Flip.
So, my goodness, we cannot rave enough about just how fun Captain Flip is. I actually thought about a whole bunch of different places it could fit in this gift list, but we were a little short on the early elementary games, so that's where it went.
Yeah, you could literally put this in almost every category.
I wouldn't put it in the under 6 category, but literally anywhere else would be fine. Captain Flip has almost no reading. It's incredibly easy to learn. It goes up to 5 players, and it's a ton of fun. You're pulling a tile out of the bag, looking at it, deciding if you want to place it as is or flip it over. If you flip it over, you're committed to placing it on its flipped side. Various boards will do more things on bonuses you can get and stuff, but mostly it's all of the characters that you're pulling out on the tiles that determine how you want to put stuff down and how they affect each other. And I'll get more coins if I put it here, but I'm better set up for the future if I put it over here. And it's both simple and remarkably, it's a tactical puzzle kind of feel, which is why it works so well for all different ages and group sizes and all of this stuff.
I mentioned Captain Flip is an award-winning game. It absolutely deserves it. If it wasn't for a crushing game in Sky Team, it probably would have won the SDJ, I think.
This is also where I give you the first warning. Currently, Captain Flip is not available on Amazon unless you want to buy the German language version. Hopefully, it will be back in stock soon, but as of this podcast, it is not. You can look for it at your local game store, though. They might still have some copies.
Just keep clicking on that Amazon link. It'll be there eventually. We promise. I think they're actively trying to source
I
more.
think so, too.
Yeah. All right. So we've got Dodo from Cosmos, Turbo Kids from Scorpion Masqué, and Captain Flip from Playpunk. If you want more than that, we do have some more lists for you. Again, if you go to thefamilygamers.com/holiday, in that Games for Early Elementary section, we have some links to our top 10 games for 6-year-olds, our theme-based games for kids 7 to 10. There's lots and lots of stuff available. Let's go over to games for older kids. So this is 10 plus, not quite teenagers. These are your preteens, the ones that truly drive you insane. What are you going to have them play, Anitra?
Well, so these games were more open to actually requiring reading, having a game that might last up to an hour or even a little bit longer than that, a little bit more strategy, and themes that skew slightly older. Our first game on this list is Mycelia. This game is gorgeous. I still can't believe when I think about it, it's a game about growing your population of mushroom people and removing dewdrops from your board.
I do want to add on Mycelia specifically. If you're hearing this and you are a board gamer and you're like, man, that sounds like a much more complicated game. There's like 4 or 5 games named Mycelia. There's 2 named Mycelia that have come out in the last 2 years. There's another game called Mycelium, and then there's another game called Undergrove. They're not all the same game.
Yes.
So if you're not looking at, I think it's a mostly purple box with a cute little, button mushroom
super
kind of
cute
guy
mushroom
on the front.
guy.
If that's not what you're seeing when you look up Mycelia, you are not looking at the right game. But don't worry, not only do we have an Amazon affiliate link in the post, we also have our review, which shows you all sorts of stuff from that game. The story on Mycelia is really cute. This is a game that was created by a developer to teach his mom how to play deck building games.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a very basic deck builder. It does have an advanced mode to it. It's super cute. It's got a great tactile feel with these dewdrops and this, I don't know what that
Shrine. It's called the Shrine.
thing is called, but there's a lot of really kind of fun pieces to Mycelia, which really does appeal to those kids in that 10 to 12 age range.
Yeah. And of the games we have in this section, this one requires the least reading. There's a little bit, but it's not very much. So if you've got a kid who wants a little bit more grown-up feeling kind of game, but still struggles with reading, this would be a great game for them.
All right, but if you have a kid who wants to get their arm bit off, we have another option for them, and that is Get Bit.
So Get Bit is a bit of a classic game at this point, but it's recently been reworked by Greater Than Games, and now it's got the theme of bath toys. So you've got little scuba diver bath toy guys and a super cute bright pink shark. Everybody takes the role of being one of the divers, and everyone plays out cards every turn. The cards that are played determine who moves first, who moves last, and who doesn't move at all. And of course, your goal is to not be at the end of the line, because whoever's at the back gets an arm or leg bit off by the shark.
So the original version of this game used robot men, which you can kind of think of like Lego minifigs.
Yeah.
And yeah, you would lose both arms and then both legs as you were playing the game. In this one, they are these kind of rubbery scuba guys, but they do, in fact, lose their arms and legs when playing. And obviously, you just kind of don't want to be the first one to lose every limb on your body. And that's Get Bit. So this one, probably a few more laughs than Mycelia, I think.
Yeah.
But, another great fun game for those 10 to 12-year-old kiddos.
All right. And our first branded game, Disney Villainous. Because who doesn't want to step into the shoes of a Disney villain, at least for a few minutes?
So in Disney Villainous, you are playing as a Disney villain, and you have asymmetric powers. This game is actually a little bit more complicated in that way. Every villain has different win conditions. They have completely different goals. This is not like you're playing a game on a common board and you're all trying to do the same thing. Everybody is trying to do something totally different.
Very much their own thing.
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of different kind of versions of this game. There is a Star Wars version of this game. There is a Marvel version of this game. We reviewed the standard base box Disney Villainous, but for the most part, other than the character-specific stuff, everything else about the general mechanics of the game holds true. I enjoyed this game a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I can say about it, too. I think of the Disney games we've played, this one is probably the best fit for that older kid not really ready for a quote-unquote adult level game. Disney Villainous is just, you're doing your own thing, mostly. And just every once in a while, you kind of throw heroes at your opponents to slow them down.
So I'm going to read off the list of villains that you can get in various flavors of Disney Villainous. The Worst Takes It All, which is what we were talking about, kind of the new base game, has Captain Hook, Jafar, Maleficent, Prince John from Robin Hood, the Queen of Hearts, and Ursula. There's also Wicked to the Core, which has Dr. Facilier, the Evil Queen from Snow White, and Hades from Hercules. Then there's Evil Comes Prepared with Ratigan, Scar, and Isma.
Yzma.
Yzma. That was close.
Yzma.
Perfectly Wretched with Cruella de Vil, Mother Gothel, and Pete. Despicable Plots with Gaston, the Horned King, and Lady Tremaine.
Wow.
Bigger and Badder with Lotso, Madame Mim. I kind of want that one. And Syndrome. Filled with Fright is a expansion with just Oogie Boogie.
Oogie Boogie. We did play that one, yeah.
And then Sugar and Spite is King Candy and Shere Khan.
Ooh.
So
King Candy.
that's a lot of characters.
So many villains.
That is a lot in these various expansions to Disney Villainous. And I didn't even really get into the other ones that are the Marvel one or the Star Wars one, which have
more
characters
stuff,
from all of
different
those
ones, yeah.
So there's a ton here. This is the kind of thing that you can pick up one for and then potentially expand if you really enjoy this game. There's just a lot going on with Disney Villainous, and it is an absolute blast to play.
All right, and we've got one more game in this category. This one is Doomlings. This is another game that both you and I were really pleasantly surprised by.
I think that's fair, yeah.
This requires the most reading, probably even more than Disney Villainous, which requires quite a bit. But it is so much fun to shepherd your little blob creatures and give them new traits so they can survive the end of the world.
They're very cute.
They're very cute.
Very cute little blobs of nothing. But yeah, Doomlings is this really kind of soft set collection game where you are just trying to gather up the most points by playing these different traits for your Doomlings. And when the end of the world comes, because it will, you want to have the most points.
Yeah.
Let's get a little older. We're going to talk about games for teens and adults now. Are you ready for that?
Yes. I'm going to point out that for us, games for teens and adults don't mean that only teens and adults can play these games, but that the themes are going to be a little bit more attractive in that age range.
The first one on here is very attractive to me because I do like myself a charcuterie board. And the first game is Charcuterie from Third World Studios.
Our teenage daughter also really, really enjoys this game.
Yes.
This is a very adult theme in that younger kids, unless they're super food obsessed, are kind of be like, it's fine. It's very realistic looking, like salami and cheese.
Yeah.
Nah.
This game makes me hungry, like every time we play.
Yes.
Yeah. So in Charcuterie, the idea is that everybody takes a turn, well, two turns really, being the host. And Charcuterie is an I Split You Choose game. So they're going to pull a certain number of pieces out of the bag and distribute them into a certain number of piles, one per player. Everybody goes around kind of drafting these piles, and the host gets the one that is left. There are different goals every game, and there is also a private goal. So you are going to be incentivized based on the goals that are there to make different sets of types of food on your board. And, again, 6 of them are publicly available. Everybody can see them. And then you have one private goal. So you are trying to maximize your points based on all of these various goals that you have in front of you. And at the end of the game, once it's gone around twice, whoever has the most points wins. All right, next on our list, we have a game from Capstone Games. This is Wandering Towers.
So this is a fun game with a strong memory component. You are racing your little wizards around this circular board to try to fill your potion bottles and move the towers as you try to get your wizards into, the tower, the Raven's Keep Tower, the goal. This is definitely a game that could have been a bunch of different places on the list, but our writer Nick asked for it to be in the teens and adult section because his adult gaming group had a blast playing this game.
Yeah, so this is a game that I really looked at and thought to myself, okay, this looks like a more complicated game. There's a lot of parts, there's a lot of kind of things going on. It's released by Capstone, which doesn't typically release family weight games, although we do have a couple from them. But it works really well down to about, I think, 8 to 10 is the lowest you could possibly go. But it really, really slaps at that early teen age range, even up through adult. There's lots of different gameplay modes. You can play solo, co-op. There's a teams mode. And then there's this crazy mode called Nasty Mode, which I'll let you read the review for that one. Again, if you go to thefamilygamers.com/holiday, you can see the link for the review on Wandering Towers. Really great game. Nice production value. It just looks really nice on the table.
Yeah, these awesome cardboard towers that you move around. Then we have Flashback Lucy. We have raved about this one quite a bit as well. It is a 4-part mystery presented in a graphic novel and various decks of cards. Your whole group is going to work together and look back in time to find out what's going on in the plot of this story. There's a creepy house. Lucy, our titular character, inherited it from her mysterious aunt. And there are definitely some creepy moments.
Mm-hmm.
We did play it with our youngest and he had fun with it, but we also played it like with the lights on in the middle of the day, did not send him to bed immediately afterwards sort of thing.
I think he was fine.
So I think
Content
he was fine.
warning on this one, there is death in this game. It's not gory or gross or whatever, but it is something that you are kind of, there's death. It happens, right?
Yes.
So that is something to be mindful of. If you play any kind of escape room things, this is right up your alley. The presentation on this is fantastic. The puzzles are pretty simple, to be honest. This is really one about the journey.
Yeah, it's more of an interactive story than a true puzzle game. Like, there are some puzzles to it, and there is stuff we needed to figure out. But yeah, it's just a really neat interactive story in the end. Okay, we've got 2 more for teens and adults, sticking with these more adulty kind of themes. We're also recommending Silver Bullet. This is part of the werewolf-themed series, the Silver series from Bezier. Silver Bullet is one that our writer Ryan reviewed. He prefers this one over the other one that he reviewed, but they're both great, Silver Bullet and Silver Dagger. The goal every round is for you yourself to end up with the lowest total value of villagers, because the higher the value is on your villagers, the more werewolves you attract. Different games in this series have powers on the villagers or other things you can do, and you're going to try to push higher value cards to your neighbors. It's got that combination of a little bit of logical deduction, a little bit of social deduction, and shedding card game. A little bit of all 3 of those.
All right, next on the list is a dice game, again from our writer Nick. This is Walking Dead, the dice game. This is a super quick push your luck game. You're using dice to attack hordes of zombies.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, and you want to collect supplies and you don't want to get hurt. So, we've talked a little bit in the past, I think fairly recently, we talked about zombie dice as a game. This is a little bit more complicated than that. Again, this is a game for teens and adults, but definitely if you have teenagers that like The Walking Dead, or if you yourself like The Walking Dead, this is a strong theme on a game. It's something that you'd be a little bit more, familiar with. Nick does specifically talk about whether or not this is family friendly. There's a little bit of gore. There's weapons. He played this game with his high schoolers and was fine with it.
I think he also watched The Walking Dead with
he's
his high
obsessed
schoolers.
with Walking Dead.
Yes.
You know,
if you like The Walking Dead, this is a good game for you.
Yeah, the game is relatively inexpensive too. This is something that, potentially, I don't think the box is that big. Potentially this could have gone in the stocking stuffers, but we have a lot of amazing stocking stuffers. So stay tuned for that part.
So in our games for teens and adults, we have Charcuterie from Third World Studios, Wandering Towers from Capstone Games, Flashback Lucy from Scorpion Masqué, Silver Bullet from Bezier, and Walking Dead, the dice game from Mantic Games.
All right, and just like before, we do have a top recommended games for teenagers list that we've linked to in the holiday post as well. All right, well, Anitra, we are the family gamers.
Yes.
So I think it's time that we talk about games for the family. What do you think?
These are games that are best at 3 or more players, and that really everybody can play, most of them.
Yeah, these are all games also that play well at different age ranges, which I think is really important when you talk about that kind of family concept. Depending on how big your family is, some of these might not quite fit, but some of them can actually scale up really high. A lot of these are really great games to get on that dinner table, maybe after, some meal, instead of parking in front of a TV watching a football game. You could play some of these games instead. The first one on the list is a game that we play the heck out of.
And plug all the time. This is Trio. I would say Trio is probably our favorite card game these days, although there are some other great ones in this list coming soon. We show Trio to lots of people. It uses memory and deduction along with some sequencing, I guess I would call it, because you can only ever ask for the highest or lowest card out of someone's hand. You keep looking around the table to try to find matching triples, matching trios of cards. There's only 3 of each number.
However, you could get the trio of golden sevens.
Yes, you could, which I did not mention in our little blurb here, but we do talk about in the review.
Right. So Trio is great. It is inexpensive. It is a game that I have played with people. They have literally turned around and ordered it on their phone immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Hugely popular. Great game from Happy Camper Games.
This could also be a stocking stuffer.
Yes, it could. Yes, it could. As could the next game on our list, which is Kabanga from Amigo Games.
This is a card shedding game. We're going to be talking more about it soon. We've talked about it recently. We're going to be teaching this at PAX Unplugged. On your turn, you're putting down a number on either side of a gap. So you have to put it on the matching color, but then you can choose if you want to cover, the higher card, the lower card. And then it creates a new gap. Everyone else is watching to see if they have any cards that match that color that fit in that gap of numbers. If they do, they throw the cards at you, and you are forced to draw more cards.
I really like this game because it's simple and not hard to explain.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a game that is simple, but it's difficult to explain everything, and once it all fits, it becomes simple. This is not that in any way, shape, or form.
I think that might be our next game.
You mean Mojo?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So Mojo is another card shedding game where the card you play determines whether you draw, pass, or play again. We played this with a bunch of different people, and a lot of them have said this feels like Uno, but it's better than Uno.
Yeah. For one thing, it's got a more defined end than Uno, and it's harder to stop someone from winning if you see that they're close. We really have enjoyed it. This is from 25th Century Games, and you have to buy it directly from their website or your local game store. It is not on the big name site. But we've really, really enjoyed it. I love the tactical nature of, I could play this card and not have to draw anything. I'll end my turn. But then I'm down to 3 cards in my hand and I won't be able to play anymore. When you have 3 cards or fewer, you have to put them down and you're going to score those 3 cards. So sometimes you look at it and you go, you know what? I would actually like to play this higher card to make me draw another card so that I have a chance to just have lower cards at the end of the game.
Yeah, because of the way the scoring works, where you only score the highest card value in a given color, sometimes it's okay to have multiple cards of the same color, so it keeps you from going out, but they all kind of get piled underneath one actual card for scoring. So, yeah, it is definitely a game that gives you more strategy than a game like an Uno without being significantly more complicated.
A little bit harder to learn, though.
It is another small box potential stocking stuffer style game in Mojo. Our next one, not quite as small of a game, not a huge game, still a card-based game, just a bigger box, and that is Time's Up Family Edition.
So when we reviewed this, we talked a ton about it. This is a game that you can expand to any number of players. We usually played it with 2 teams, but you can play with 3 teams or even 4 teams.
If you've ever played the game Celebrity, I think Celebrity is kind of the common one where everybody writes down, 5 celebrities and you put them all in a thing, and then you go around. In the first round, you can say whatever you want to, and in the second round, you're limited on the way that you can give clues. Maybe you can only give like a 1-word clue, and in the third round, it's charades only or something along those lines. That's really the construction of Time's Up Family Edition. The words in here are really pretty good for a family. We've occasionally run into words that didn't work, but it's really not that bad.
The words are really, really well selected. We had a couple of weird edge cases where it was usually just one person in the group was unaware of something.
That would only be really kids that have that issue. Yeah. So if you're playing this in a multi-generational group, you're probably not going to run into that problem.
Yeah.
But this is another one of those games where I had people messaging me weeks later saying, what was that game? I need to order it.
Yeah.
So definitely a really fun one in Time's Up. We talk about the Family Edition, but really there are a bunch of them.
There are a bunch of them, but we really like the Family Edition for playing as a whole family because the words are so well chosen. We got another party game in this category, Smug Owls.
So Smug Owls is a very, very clever game. There's something about Smug Owls that reminds me of a game we played a while ago called Poetry Slam. And the reason why it reminds me of Poetry Slam is because it requires something super clever on the part of the people playing the game. In Poetry Slam, it was coming up with a rhyming couplet that was a clue for your word.
Yeah.
In Smug Owls, it is a really neat system where the cards kind of programmatically create a very philosophical question.
A riddle.
It's I guess a riddle is the easiest way to put it. But they always sound so, I don't know, high society, high concept. High concept would be, I guess, the term that I'm thinking of.
Sometimes, yeah. I don't think they always do.
So what's an example of a riddle that would come out?
What shrinks as soon as it is fragile?
Am I supposed to answer this, or are we just going to move on?
We can just move on. I literally pulled that from our review.
Okay. Well, then, if you want some answers, go to the review and you'll find out. Oh, I think ego is in there.
Self-confidence.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, you get the idea. And I love this because kids come up with some really cool and clever responses to some of these things. And it's really fun.
And whoever ends up being the judge in a given round has 3 points to give out in the form of the cards that made up the riddle. And so it also gives them an opportunity to reward multiple people or to weight those rewards and be like, your answer was really good, and I'm going to give you 2 because this other answer over here was super clever, even if it's not quite as good, and I'm going to give them 1.
Sure. All right, so that is Smug Owls. That one is from Runaway Parade. Another smaller box that you could shove in a stocking.
You could.
All right, the last one, not a small box.
Not at all a small box. Also tops out at 4 players. It's the only one in this group that does, but it's so much fun, I had to include it somewhere.
So 25th Century this year has imported the game Hamster Roll. Our review for this is going to come out very soon. This is a game with a large yellow wheel. I think the wheel is probably like 14 inches in diameter or so.
Maybe even a little bigger than that. It is a big wheel.
Yeah. And it's got all these ledges. And everybody has a distribution of pieces, and the set of pieces is the same for each person.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, you are putting these pieces on these ledges, and you always have to put them on the same ledge or a further ledge, depending on which direction the wheel is rolling in. But as you put things on these ledges, the wheel starts to roll, and the stuff on the back could fall off. And so there's this like really careful balance that you have to do, where you eventually get rid of all of your pieces, and the first person to get rid of all their pieces wins.
This is a dexterity game that is even more fun than I thought it was going to be, and a slightly different kind of fun than I thought it was going to be. You can get incredibly tactical with this game. You can get incredibly mean with this game. You don't have to. Importantly, even the kid who didn't really like it the first time we played it later came back and said, hey, can we play that hamster roll game again?
Mm-hmm.
So I really think this is a game that's good for everyone.
All right, well, that's the family. Let's get a little bit smaller, a little bit more intimate. Let's talk about some 2-player games.
Yes, let's. All right, we're going to start with what's probably our favorite 2-player game.
Mm-hmm. We talk about it all the time.
Even though it doesn't get brought to breakfast dates very often because it's a little large for that. That's Unmatched.
Yup. I mentioned Villainous earlier and all the different characters for Villainous. I am not going to list all of the different characters for Unmatched.
There's too many.
Are available, but there are a lot. Any of the Unmatched boxes, with 2 exceptions, the Bruce Lee and the Deadpool boxes, have at least 2 characters in them, so you can play the game with any box.
Yes.
This is a skirmish game. It was a repurposed version of Star Wars Epic Duels done by Restoration. But you can play with all sorts of characters like Shakespeare or Houdini, or more classic combat characters like Robin Hood or King Arthur.
Yeah.
There's just a ton. Some of the favorites that we have are Battle of Legends Volume 1, which is kind of the first set that came out.
Mm-hmm.
Or Little Red and Beowulf. Our daughter loves Little Red as a character.
And I think that one's a great choice if you've never played Unmatched before, because Little Red and Beowulf are very nicely matched characters without a lot of complexity to them.
Mm-hmm. This is a game system that you can grow into. We have a shelf in our house that I put up for our Unmatched games.
Yeah.
And there's even some cooperative opportunities with Unmatched. They just came out with this thing called Tales to Amaze. They're currently Kickstarting or have just wrapped up a Kickstarter for a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles co-op expansion thing, which is pretty neat. but the one that they released previously has like Tesla and like Mothman is the villain, and it's a cooperative game, so it's pretty cool. So Unmatched is just a really, really great game system that can absolutely grow with your family. But as a game for two, it's a winner.
If that feels like too much, which it well might, and you want a faster dueling game, smaller, cheaper, and requires you to get into your opponent's head, we have two recommendations. Andrew really, really liked Curie the Duel. I like it, but not as much as he does. What I like better is Pocket Paragons. Both of these are great card-based dueling games where you have a very small hand of cards, and you need to predict what your opponent is going to play while also trying to figure out how to attack them with what you play.
Curie the Duel is a 2-player samurai dueling combat game. Pocket Paragons, I don't really know how you would define the theme of that one.
It comes in a bunch of different versions, but all of them, it's just two characters facing off with each other. Any of the boxes of Pocket Paragons you buy will have somewhere between 4 and 8 characters.
Well, what if you didn't want to beat up on each other? What if you wanted to work together?
Then I think we recommend this year's Spiel des Jahres winner,
Sky Team. This game did win the Spiel this year. I mentioned it when we were talking about Captain Flip. This is a game from Scorpion Masqué where you play as the pilot and co-pilot of a commercial airline. And you are working the flaps and the brakes and the engine and the radio to clear other airplanes out of the way. And you are trying to successfully land a plane on time in the right location.
It is just as challenging as that makes it sound. This is a dice placement game with limited communication. We have still only played the first scenario, but we intend to play more of them and have really, really enjoyed it.
Yep. This is a very, very good, well-made game that has a lot of complexity, but there's a lot of good direction in the graphic design, so it doesn't feel as complicated as it actually is.
I agree.
They do a really, really good job with that one. So that is Sky Team from Scorpion Masqué. The last one on our list for games for two is a game that we just played on our last date night, or date breakfast, whatever it is, and that is Compile.
So I include this one with a slight bit of reservation. Compile is best for serious gamers like me and you and our son Asher. A lot of other people are probably not going to like it.
I think when you say serious gamer, I think you're inflating it a little bit. It's a tactical dueling game. If you've ever played Pokemon, you could play Compile and it would be fine.
Maybe. This is
any of those kinds of games.
This is a lane battling game. So if you have heard of things like Land, Air, and Sea, this is similar to that game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We really, really like the theming on this, which is that you are both kind of rogue AIs trying to compile enough code to escape containment.
Yeah, it's really, really neat. The game comes with, I don't even know if I remember, 12 of these different types of decks, basically. I think it's 6 cards in each one of them. And there's an expansion that you can buy that adds, 4 more or something to that effect. You draft 1, your opponent drafts 2. You draft 2, your opponent drafts 1. So you've got a combination of 3 of these different mini decks that you shuffle up, and then those become your 3 lanes that you are trying to compile into. There's a little bit more complexity to the game than that. It's certainly not super simple, but it is just an absolute blast. The game plays really quickly. There's definitely back and forth, but we have a ton of fun with it, and it looks great.
Yeah.
So that is Compile. This is another stocking stuffer.
Maybe, kind of.
You can fit it. You could try.
But wait, you say, I want to give games to somebody who doesn't always have an opponent to play with.
When 2 people is too many, you turn to the solo games.
So this is a new category for this year, but there have been so many great solo games that we've looked at this year, or games with solo modes, that I really wanted to highlight some. The first one is A Gentle Rain. I've talked about this one before, but now it's at Target. This is an awesome, gentle, puzzly game.
So A Gentle Rain reminds me a little bit of Lanterns.
Yeah, you're putting down tiles, you're matching up colored sides, and you're just kind of making this nice picture with all the match stuff as you go. In A Gentle Rain, your goal is to surround these common corners and then put flower tokens in. But even in the rules, it's kind of a like, hey, you get as many flower tokens in as you can. If you didn't get them all, then your score is just the tokens that you managed to put down. If you do get them all, you get a bonus to your score, and that's it. Great. It's really more about the act of working through the puzzle than it is about, I did super awesome and got the best possible score.
Sure. All right, next is the game Beacon Patrol. So this is not always a solo game. This is a cooperative game as well, but you can definitely play it solo.
You explore the North Sea while putting down tiles in this game. And again, it's one where you have a score at the end of the game, but mostly you're just going to see how well you can do as you're moving your little boat around while you place tiles down.
Yeah, I really like this game because all of the tiles are just a little bit different. A lot of them have kind of cute little things on them, and you're really sort of building the world as you play.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of games like Akrotiri, if you remember that game. That is a 2-player game with this same kind of sailing exploration thing.
Yep.
It's just really, really nice. This is a nice offering from Pandasaurus Games, and it comes with a mini kind of expansion, 2 of them actually, inside the box if you pick it up. So you can really start basic and then start to expand your game by adding piers and windmills.
I also wanted to call out Sherlock Solitaire for this list. The name is deceptive. It can actually be played solo or as a couple with one player being Dr. Watson and one player being Sherlock.
Are you saying that Sherlock and Watson were a couple?
A pair?
Just 2 people.
Two people. Friends. But it's this interesting feeling of like a classic Klondike Solitaire that you're putting cards down and building up columns of cards, but with this kind of dark, brooding, Victorian-esque theme and different challenges that are called cases. This one could also be a stocking stuffer. It is nice and cheap. And if you've got a friend who really likes standard solitaire, this could elevate their game a little bit.
It definitely could. I really, really do like Sherlock Solitaire. Last one on the list is a classic. Sherlock Solitaire probably skews a little bit towards the older kids or older adults in your family. Rush Hour does not necessarily.
It's a great fit for any puzzle-minded person, whether they're a kid or an adult. One of the things I love about Rush Hour is it's pretty well self-contained and you could play it in the car. So if you've got a long road trip as part of your holidays, maybe give this one before the trip.
All right, we're going to get into our cooperative games now. So we've gone from a bunch of people to 2 people to 1 people, and now we're back to multiple people working together this time.
Working together.
The first 2 games on this list we'll blow right through because we've actually already talked about them. They fit multiple categories. The first one is Flashback Lucy, which is that graphic novel spooky story.
Yep.
That we recommended earlier. And the second one is Sky Team, which is that Spiel des Jahres winning 2-player cooperative game.
We also want to include another classic on this list, Castle Panic.
So we mentioned my first Castle Panic back when we were talking about games for under 6-year-old kiddos. But Castle Panic is back with a new edition. It is completely redone, all new art, all new everything, and all of the expansions that you already know and love are starting to come out with the new stuff associated with them as well. So you can get just the base game, or you can get it with some of these expansions kind of built in, or just get the base game and then add those expansions on a little bit later. It's an absolute classic. Millions of copies of this game have been sold, I'm sure. The second edition offers some extra quality of life improvements, we'll say.
Yeah.
Or some things that kind of help with maybe if you're colorblind, some things are a little bit more obvious, stuff like that. So if your family has not already defended your tower from the marauding monsters, this is the perfect time to start.
And our last cooperative game on the list is Disney Animated.
So I love Disney Animated. I saw this game and I thought it looked kind of cool and I was really interested to try it. But to be transparent, I expected to be disappointed and I absolutely was not.
Yeah, I have loved this game every time we play it. It's a really neat feeling that you are working on your own Disney animated movie, whether that's Aladdin or Alice in Wonderland or Snow White. But while you're working on putting together your own movie, you're also working together with everyone else to stop or slow down the movie villains who are trying to basically wreak havoc, stop you guys from finishing your movies, and destroy the studio.
Thanks for nothing, villains. So this is just a really wonderful game. They have, just like Villainous earlier, they have original Disney art in them. They look great. They have these really cool transparent film pieces that you overlay on top of stuff. It's a really, really well put together game from the team at Funko.
For anyone who enjoys or appreciates classic Disney animated movies, and by classic, I mean anything from the 1990s or earlier, sadly, because Aladdin is in here.
We're classics, Mitra.
We are now. Each one of these movies shows up in its own specific style. There's 5 movies in the box. Each one of them has some very thematic elements tied to that specific movie. It's really, really great. It had us singing songs and really enjoying the journey of going through the game, even though it does not make any sense for, like, the genie from Aladdin to be helping out Pongo and Perdita from 101 Dalmatians. That part doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's just fun. It's really, really great. All right, we have one more section. We've joked about stocking stuffers. Now we're really going to talk about some.
So everything in this list is under $25, a small box, and we think has pretty broad appeal.
Absolutely. And the first one on this list is actually from a publisher that we've talked about before.
Twice already.
Yeah, those games are not stocking stuffers, but this one is. This is the game Ultimatch from Fireside Games.
Ultimatch is a card game. It is fully cooperative. You can play it solo all the way up to 5 players, and it feels a lot like Pyramid Solitaire, so it's really easy to learn and get into and understand.
Yeah, one of the things I love about this game, the point in Ultimatch is that you are trying to take a card from your hand or a card from the shared tableau and add it with another card to result in a card that is in the pyramid so that you can remove it, so that you can eventually remove the whole pyramid. And it's a really good game for color matching and some basic arithmetic with your kids. It's not a learning game. It's not like, oh, we're playing this math game. This is a game that appeals to just about anybody because it's something that everybody understands. Everybody knows Pyramid Solitaire, or even if they don't know how to play it specifically, like they've seen it before, it's a thing with cards that is familiar, but it's got a little bit of a twist and it makes it a little bit more interesting.
Yep. And it is $10 on Amazon right now. So
Ultimatch also has that same thing that we talked about with Mojo, where you kind of have to play around with who's got what cards in order to keep the rounds going. Because once everybody passes, then they, you lose the game. So in Ultimatch, that's a cooperative process. In Mojo, that's a personal process. But it's a neat way to add just enough decision logic to a game that doesn't necessarily have to have gamers playing it in order for them to understand that and have that appeal to them. So it's a really, really great, clever way to introduce some decision space to a game without making it more complicated.
The next game on our list is one that we've never reviewed, but I have talked up to lots of people over the years.
I actually find it amazing to think that we've never actually reviewed Tussie Mussy.
Well, part of that is because until now it was only available from Button Shy, and since I had already bought a copy, I don't really feel like spending my time on reviewing it.
Anitra, for the Snap review, Tussie Mussy is rated 5 flowers out of 5.
Okay.
There you go.
So Tussie Mussy has been around for quite a while, but the reason it made our stocking stuffers list this year is because you can now buy it at Barnes & Noble. It is not the wallet game we might be used to from Button Shy anymore. It is a slightly larger box, but not a much larger box. It's still just a card game, and it comes in a normal size box now for $20. It includes a bunch of the expansions that I've bought over the years. But the basic idea behind Tussie Mussy is great and simple and pretty easy to understand. You're telling the people around you that you love them with the language of flowers, and every turn someone is offering to someone else a face-up card or a face-down card. The other person has to pick one. The person who made the offer gets the other one back. You play until everyone has 4 cards in front of them, either face up or face down or a mix of both. And then it's time to score. That's it. It's a beautiful game. It's a simple game. There is a lot of reading, but everyone I've played this with has enjoyed it, whether they're a gamer or not.
I would say that Tussie Mussie has pretty broad appeal, both to the horticulturists in your life, but also to basically anybody who likes period dramas. Like, if you know somebody who's watching Bridgerton or Downton Abbey or one of these kinds of shows, it has that, you know what I mean?
That like Victorian-esque.
Yeah, it does, because of the art and because it's leaning into kind of the classic old school meaning of the different kinds of flowers. And it's just nice. This is a great date game. We talk about date games on the show. This is a fantastic one for that. So maybe buy it for your loved one.
Our next game on the list is one that Nick just reviewed a couple of weeks ago for the Family Gamers. This is Pass the Pot from R&R. This is perfect for people in your life who already enjoy these really luck-based betting type games like LCR.
Mm-hmm. This is a great game because it comes in like a little tin. I don't want to say it looks like a tobacco tin, but it kind of looks like a tobacco tin.
It looks like
the silly putty tin.
It looks like the Staples Easy Button.
Yeah, kind of, sure. So this is something you could just throw in a bag, throw in a purse, whatever, and pull it out at dinner with the family if you go out somewhere or something like that. And, you're rolling some dice, you're passing these things around. This is kind of like a dreidel or an LCR or something like that. Very simple, but just a little bit different. So if you want something that's got some more flavor to it, Pass the Pot is definitely an option for you.
And that one is $15 as of recording time.
All right, our next review is actually another review from Nick. This is Toils and Troubles from Grandpa Beck's Games.
So this is a card game where everybody is trying to like amass the best sets in their little tableau type thing. But there's a central space that cards get played out into. And this is a push your luck game where you can keep pulling cards off the deck as long as you can put them into the tableau. When you decide to stop, you can take an entire row of that central tableau and add all of the cards in there to your scoring section. But if you keep going and keep going and keep going and you draw a card off the top of the deck that you can't place, you bust, you get nothing this turn. Part of what makes this game interesting is that whether you bust or not, everyone else will get to pick a card from that central set of rows and put it into their tableau. But kind of like another game we've talked about, Trio, you can only pick from either end of a row. So there's a lot of strategy buried here under some very simple rules.
The game scales super well. Nick wrote that it plays really well at 2 players and mechanics are consistent with higher player counts. Games can be played back to back because you go fairly quickly, but it also plays well at higher player counts because those games are quick. There is a little bit of take that in this game, depending on the summon and the vanish cards, and we'll let you read the review to get a little bit more details. So it's something to be mindful of, but the cards are beautiful. The art is fantastic. It's got this very bizarre, mystical kind of look to it. It's really, really neat.
Yeah, definitely a fantasy theme, but slightly darker fantasy. Nothing here that's inappropriate for kids. And it is only $17.
Yeah, Nick calls it the perfect marriage of mechanics and gameplay. A hit with his family and gaming group, and I bet it'll be a hit with yours as well. Speaking of hits, because that's kind of what we're doing, we're hitting the hits, right?
Yep.
The last game in our stocking stuffers list is kind of a bunch of games all at once, and
Evergreen.
that is the Holiday Hijinks series from Grand Gamers Guild. These are 18-card escape room games. They offer an hour or maybe a little bit more if you get some of the harder ones of just sitting around your table and solving some mysteries. They're all really, really cleverly put together. You never feel like you're playing the same puzzles if you go from hijink to hijink, I guess we'll call them. They're mostly themed around different holidays. These are just great. They could be Halloween, Valentine's Day. The Groundhog Day one, I think, might be my favorite right now. It's really, really cool. There's a ton of them. If it's, by the way, December 24th and you're in trouble, you can even buy these as print and plays, which is a pretty cool way to get around that shipping delay thing. And they're also even more
affordable.
More affordable. Yeah, that's the way to put it. I love these holiday hijinks games. Every time I go to a convention and I know the Grand Gamers Guild is going to be there, I go and find out which ones I don't yet have, and I pick them up because I just know they're going to be good.
Yeah. For anyone who has been on the fence about these in the past, I will point out something I knew but hadn't really realized the import of until recently, which is that unlike a lot of other escape rooms, there is a timer in this game, but it counts up. You're not under time pressure. There's nothing here that's like, oh, you made a mistake, and so we're going to reduce the time you have to work on this. No, it's very friendly as escape room type games go. There's nothing here really penalizing you. If you didn't get an answer right, and the puzzle doesn't work, you just try again. Mm-hmm. There's a really fantastic hint system for every single one of these, and it's not the, oh, I'm going to tell you information you already know, and then I'm going to tell you other information you already know, and here's the solution. Instead, it's a series of questions to try to help you dial in, like, this is the part of the puzzle that I need help on.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They're very well made. They're going to continue to be supported. There's a Kickstarter that just wrapped up with even more. Mm-hmm. So Holiday Hijinks, definitely a system to buy into, so to speak.
Yep. The price on these is $11 for a single one, $20 to $25 for a pack of 3, or the print and plays are $5 or $6 a piece. So really affordable. You get an hour or more of great fun out of one of them, and really, really compact.
You could slide one in your pocket, even your jeans.
Yeah, you could.
All right, well, Anitra, that's a lot of games.
That's
many
games.
That's a big list. But we're not done talking about games. We've got a little bit more to cover before we wrap up the show. So the first thing I want to mention is that we do, in fact, have some holiday contests going on right now.
Yes. Go to thefamilygamers.com. The giveaway is right there on the front page, or look at the show notes for this episode. There's a link to the giveaway near the bottom. We have 4 of them that are still running. The Holiday Hijinks one is now closed. The 4 that are still running are Archaeologic, Patrician, Mutton Bustin', and Avant Card.
All of these are fantastic games. We've had an absolute blast with them. We've reviewed 2. We will be reviewing the other 2. So definitely head over to thefamilygamers.com and enter the giveaways.
That's an even cheaper way to get a Christmas present for someone in your family.
I suppose that's true. Yeah, these are going to ship out at the beginning of December. So if you happen to win, you got one in the bag. All right. We typically pull out a new Backtalk question, but since we're doing this kind of back-to-back show thing, and since, to give you a little secret, we have a Sponsored for Science coming up fairly soon, we're just going to restate last week's Backtalk question to give you a little bit of a clue of what our For Science might be, and ask this. What is your favorite beverage to have with a board game? Or do you forbid drinks from being anywhere near your games? Which is understandable.
You can find this Backtalk question to respond on our Facebook community or on the Family Tabletop community on Discord. We have links to both of those in the show notes. You've heard us say them a billion times, so if you want them, go look in the show notes. Of course, you can also talk to us on all kinds of social media online at Family Gamers AA on Facebook and X and Instagram and TikTok. You can find our Snap reviews, our last 100 or so Snap reviews on YouTube, along with some funny outtakes videos.
You like making me look dumb on YouTube.
I mean...
Look, I make myself look dumb on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's fine.
You like making yourself look dumb.
You can always email us, Andrew at thefamilygamers.com.
Anitra at thefamilygamers.com.
Don't forget to check out our Family Gamers and Play Games with Your Kids merchandise. If you didn't hear a gift idea in the last hour that you were excited by, hopefully this one will get you. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more at thefamilygamers.com/merch.
For the gamer who really, truly has everything, get them a Play Games with Your Kids shirt.
Or if you just need to encourage someone that they need to play some games with their kids, maybe this is a non-subtle hint.
Also good.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the show, tell your friends about the show, and leave us a review at Apple Podcast or whatever your podcast subscription source is. You can find us on Amazon Music, TuneIn, Spotify, all over the place. YouTube Music, you can find us there too.
YouTube Music, yes.
All right.
The Family Gamers is sponsored by First Move Financial. Go to firstmovefinancial.com/familygamers and learn how the team at First Move Financial can help you pile up the victory points.
All right, well, Anitra, we have something very exciting happening in the next week. We're going to couple an interview with that, and we're going to share some fun stuff in a couple of weeks on the show. I'm excited to talk about it. But until then, everybody,
Play games with your kids.